Hello students, the topic is group of 7. So recently 49th summit was held in Hiroshima in Japan. So India, Australia, Brazil along with few other country heads were invited to the summit. So in this summit India has given 10-point action plan which provides few solutions to the problems faced all over the world. So those 10-point action plan is, the first point is inclusive food systems that protect the most vulnerable. It means providing food and nutritional support for the vulnerable people. Next is to depoliticize global fertilizer supply chains. So fertilizer trading should not be politically dependent, it should be depoliticized. Next is to develop an alternative model to fertilizers. So generally by using fertilizers there is a soil pollution, groundwater pollution, and it also promotes global warming. So in order to reduce that pollution, that sort of pollution, natural fertilizers should be encouraged and the fertilizers with less pollution should be encouraged. So to develop an alternative model to fertilizers is one of the 10-point action plan proposed in the G7 summit. And the next one is to stop food wastage and to strengthen food security and to adopt millets. Next is to develop models inspired by the needs of the global south. So here the global south are the regions which are the poorest and the least industrialized countries. So those countries include the countries of Africa, Latin America, Caribbean, Asia without Israel, Japan, South Korea, and Oceania without Australia and New Zealand. So these global south countries are the regions which consist of the poorest and the least industrialized countries. Next is to promote holistic healthcare sector. Healthcare systems should be promoted, digital healthcare should be promoted, and quality and quantity of healthcare professionals should be encouraged, should be increased. So this 10-point action plan was proposed by India to address the issues related to food, health, and other development related issues. So this was from India's side. So G7, the summit concluded with some major outcomes. So those major outcomes include the countries have agreed to set up a strong economic controlled platform. So it is done so because China is using trade as a tool for foreign policy. So, using trade as a tool for foreign policy is called weaponization of trade. So, to counter this, the G7 countries have decided to set up a coordinated economic platform. The second one is to develop and adopt international technical standards for trustworthy artificial intelligence. So, to secure artificial intelligence, international technical standards should be developed and adopted by all the countries. Next is the members pledge to achieve net zero emissions by 2050 and to limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees. And the G7 countries have agreed Hiroshima Action Statement on global food security. So creating a coordinated strong economic base to the countries to to counter the weaponization of trade, developing and adopting international technical standards in artificial intelligence, achieving net zero emissions by 2050, and responding to the global food crisis as suggested by the Hiroshima Action Statement are the outcomes of the 49th G7 summit. Now let's know about the G7 or the group of 7 countries. So it is a group of international top trading and industrialized countries. Its members are France, Germany, US, UK, Italy, Canada. So these are the 7 members. This is a simple trick to remember G7 countries. From Gujarat, I see U. So F for France, G for Germany, U for US, J for Japan, I for Italy, C Canada, and U for UK. So from Gujarat, I see U is a trick to remember G7 countries. So these countries meet every year and discuss on the issues related to international security, global economic governance, and other problems faced by the countries of G7. So G7 was formed as a result of huge economic problems during 1970s. So the first oil shock and the collapse of Bretton Woods made the heads of the countries to form a platform to discuss on the global economic governance, international security, and energy policies, etc. So later on in the year 1998, Russia was included in G7. Generally, G7 was formed in the during 1970s. In the 1998, Russia was included and formed G8 or group of 8 countries. Okay, till 2013, the forum continued as G8 countries, but in 2014, Russia occupied Crimea. So, stating this act as illegal by the US and other powerful countries, uh, they suspended Russia from the G8, and from then onwards it was renamed as G7. So one point to remember here is the European Union is not a member of G7 countries but attends the annual summit. Okay, so let's look into the achievements of G7 countries. So here in 2002, it has played an important role in setting up the global fund to fight against malaria and AIDS. These countries agreed to introduce global minimum tax of 15% on multinational companies. Here, the global minimum tax is collected from multinational companies which is set up in few countries and make more profit business there. So even Google, Amazon also have to pay this global minimum tax. And in the year 2015, Global Apollo program was launched to tackle the climate change through clean energy research and development. So these are the few achievements of G7 countries. So here coming to G20 countries. G20 countries are the group of 20 countries. It is the sum of G7 countries plus Russia and Argentina, Australia, Brazil, China, European Union, India, Indonesia, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, South Korea, and Turkey. So, this is about the G7, G8, and G20 and the 49th summit of G7 countries.